I look at mental health as being kind of the best version of yourself. If I can't be the best version of myself, I can't be the best version of myself for anyone else either. Some research done in Canada, 75% of respondents said that they would refuse to disclose a mental illness to an employer or a coworker, and that the respondents were nearly 3 times less likely to disclose a mental illness than a physical one.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the WIM podcast. Women in Influencer Marketing is a first-of-its-kind exclusive networking group made up of inspirational women. This podcast is where we explore influencer marketing and get real about women in business. Find us wherever you download podcasts, and of course, you can always find us at iamwim.com. That's iamwim.com.
Hey guys, what is going on? Welcome back to the Women in Influencer Marketing podcast. This week's episode, special is definitely the right word to use. So it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and we came up with the idea to certainly address it, talk about it in this podcast specifically because I don't know, there's only so much that you can say on in a social post. So I knew that I wanted to have a conversation about mental health, about just wellness in general, but very specifically mental health and how it relates to influencer marketing, the work that we do, but just have a really honest, human, candid conversation about it. So I posed the question to our members and I said, is there anyone who'd want to raise their hand and have this conversation with me on the podcast? Questions queued up, really no framework, but just an open chat. And many of you guys did raised your hands and said that I would love to have this conversation. So we decided on our 3 guests that you'll hear from shortly. It was just from the get-go, they just dove in so willing to just be honest and real about it. Something that I've struggled very much so, just being open about what we all experience. So they helped me feel more comfortable in doing so. And my hope in just having this conversation broadly is that we can all just have these conversations more and it'll make you guys all feel more comfortable having it as well. So I'll share a brief story before we jump into this week's episode. I guess before that, I do want to invite you guys to all these awesome events that we have coming up. You could check out our website, of course, for the list of all of them. This week, we have Writing Social Copy That Converts. It's this Wednesday, the 17th of May. It's going to be so, so good. It's a masterclass about how to write social copy, how to edit social copy. So whether you're a talent manager with influencers who are writing it all the time and want to help them, or if you're an influencer yourself and just want to get better at writing copy that converts. That is the operative word, conversion. That's the idea that we're going after. And I think it's one of the last things that people think about is the copy and how impactful it can be. We're all writing all the time. So whether it's captions, emails, newsletters, in full transparency, I actually ended up hiring Kelsey to help us at WIM with our copy after I dove into her masterclass and saw how talented she is. So I'm a customer now and I can only attest to the ideas in her masterclass are just really, really good and really thought provoking. And we're all so focused on, the video and the photo, which of course is important, but the copy always gets overlooked. Anyways, this event is this Wednesday. Highly encourage you to check it out. Members always attend for free. And then you always get a replay included in case for some reason something comes up, you're not able to attend. So I encourage you guys to check it out. Of course, we have our New York and LA in-person experiences. Tickets are selling and they are selling quickly. This event always sells out. We just have space constraints. So I highly encourage you, if you are in LA or traveling through for VidCon, June 20th, get your ticket. ASAP. You are going to kick yourself when the tickets sell out and we can't open them up. It's not like a virtual event. So, and then New York City is on July 27th. So definitely get your tickets for that. Members only pay $25. They're half off. So make sure that you are logged in to see the member special price. So I wanted to share, I guess, what happened yesterday. I'm filming this intro on Monday, the day before this podcast airs. And I don't want to take up too much time with my own story, but I knew I needed to record this intro. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, and this entire episode is about mental health. And so, as nervous as I am sitting here right now, I'm inspired by our guests on this week's episode. So, I will share a brief story with you about what just happened yesterday. So, I posted about this on my social. I don't know why I'm so nervous because I've already put it out there a bit into the world, but I guess now I'll provide a little bit more context. Mother's Day is a really difficult day for me. And I know that it's difficult for a lot of other people as well. And no one ever talks about it. So, my hope is that by sharing this brief story that, I don't know, someone, anyone can relate, will feel less alone. So Mother's Day is really difficult. Why? Number one, I know I've shared this on the show before, all how wonderful it is to be a stepmom. And it is. There's so many wonderful things about it. There are also a lot of really awful things about it. I put up with it and the less than ideal things. Why? Just because like I am obsessed with my stepdaughter and you can hear her voice every episode. And because her voice is at the very end of each and every episode, she's like an incredible human without getting into detail. But the real talk, like it's really hard to be a stepmom sometimes. You know, we get her half the time and I will literally never see her on a Mother's Day. So, as much like time and energy and love as I pour into her, like, of course, she'll be with her mother on Mother's Day. And while all the mothers out there will immediately empathize with that point of view, the very few of us who are out there as stepmothers respect that point of view, but also it's a really hard day because you'll literally never get the recognition that they love you and that you deserve a special day too. Yes, technically there is a stepmother's day. It's the Sunday after Mother's Day. We've never celebrated it in our house. I feel a little weird about it. It feels like a consolation prize. So Mother's Day is always really difficult for that reason, number one. And number two, I personally am estranged from my mom. Gosh, this is so hard to say. So I am estranged from actually most of my family for reasons that maybe I'll share in a future episode, but certainly not today, just because it would absolutely at least take an entire episode to explain. But my mom is one of those people. And so on Mother's Day, it's really hard to just basically see everybody around you celebrating, appreciating their mother, whether they're a mother or their grandmother, which, you know, I don't have grandparents anymore. Most people my age, I don't know, a lot of us don't. That's like normal. But most people have a mother to celebrate and to like express love towards and have love exchanged, you know, between you guys. And I just don't have that. So I need to prepare better for Mother's Day because it was a really hard day for me yesterday that I'm still a little sensitive to right now, which is fine. And then my mom actually reached out to me yesterday, which I don't think I'm prepared to share what that text message said, but for context, you know, we haven't spoken in over 10 years, probably about 10 years at this point. And so, you know, she tried to get a rise out of me and it's the same behavior that I was hopeful would change and improve 10 years ago when, you know, things escalated and unfortunately 10 years later, it's the same thing. It's the same behavior. And in fact, I've heard from another family member that, like, if anything, it's gotten worse. So, just sharing a personal story with you guys. Again, there's so much more to say. And I hate to like sort of tease you with this, if you can even consider this like a tease in any way. This is so hard to talk about, but it's what's on my mind. I would feel as if I'm withholding something from you guys if I didn't like in the mental health awareness episode in the intro when this just literally happened yesterday. And I'm just like, hey guys, what's going on? It's a great day here in New York. Like, I'd be fake as hell if I didn't at least bring it up. So, without going into all the specifics and all the details and leaving you guys with like just the tiniest bit of what happened and why Mother's Day is a really difficult day for me, I hope that those of you who can relate, where it's not an easy day for a variety of different reasons, and everyone tells you that it should just be a Hallmark holiday, that many of us are sitting here hurting and in like physical and emotional pain because it's hard to reconcile these things. So, all right. With all that being said, I do want to get into this episode because, like I said, inspiring, honest, real, candid. These are words to describe this week. And I am just grateful that Kelsey and Ginger and Jenny joined this week. So I'm excited for you to enjoy this week. And yeah, just take care of yourself, guys. These things are really sensitive for anybody who needs a trigger warning galore. We sort of talk about everything. So, all that being said, I hope that you listen or watch this episode because we are on YouTube. We love YouTube. I hope that you guys just are in the right space to hear these things. And I just hope it helps you guys. So if you have any comments or thoughts or anything that you want to say about this episode after listening to it, reach out to us. You could reach out to me personally. I'm Jessy Grossman on Instagram, LinkedIn, and we'll also link our guests' handles in the show notes as well. All right, guys. Long intro. Hard to do. Got through it. Enjoy this week's episode. Thank you guys so much, all three of you. We have a group chat today, which, I mean, this is like my ideal. I just think that, first of all, like you're all three amazing in your own right. I also think that like the topic that sort of I pitched to like have you guys come here and talk about today would really, really benefit from having multiple perspectives, which is mental health, because it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And it's a topic that, like, fortunately, unfortunately, like affects so many of us. I almost feel like if it doesn't affect people, like, I don't know if you're lucky or you're living under a rock, or if it probably does and you're just unaware. Like all of those scenarios, I guess, are possible. But first and foremost, welcome everyone. So I think that maybe a great place to just like level set is just to have like a little short introduction from each of you so we can just get to know you guys individually before we sort of get started talking about everything. But Ginger, will you be so kind as to start and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Ginger Bertrand. I own a PR and talent management firm out of Toronto, Canada called Gab Group Inc. I have been working in entertainment for over 15 years now, and I started this company about 8 years ago. And we started as a PR firm, and now we are a PR firm, talent management firm, and we invest in our clients' companies.
That's huge. That's pretty exciting. Kelsey, let's get to know Kelsey next. Can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. I'm Kelsey Formost. I am the founder of Magic Words Copywriting, where I specialize in teaching entrepreneurs and small business owners how to write words that sell without sounding salesy or feeling gross. And what I realized in all of my years of doing copywriting and marketing and entertainment was that people had a really hard time figuring out their brand voice because they didn't know their true voice. And I ended up becoming a mental health advocate in the process because I would have meetings with people and they would end up crying and being like, oh my gosh, now I have to figure out who I am. So I'm so excited to share all of the research that I have found over the years that really helps small business owners and entrepreneurs and creators to what they can do to optimize the situation to help their mental health along the way.
And you have a podcast on mental health, right? Please shamelessly plug because just I want you to.
Thanks for the opportunity. Yes, I do have a podcast. It's called Find Your Magic, and it is specifically about the intersection of entrepreneurship and mental health. So I bring on an expert every week who gives both tips that build your business as well as tips for managing your mental health and making it the best that it can be.
I mean, that's phenomenal and you're wonderful. And there's many reasons why I asked you to be here today. So thank you for coming, Ginger, Kelsey, and now Jenny. I'd love to get to know you. So if you could share a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks for having us on today, Jessy. So my name is D Safransky. I know that's kind of lengthy, but I am the founder of JDS Projects, a talent management agency focused on connecting diverse female creators and experts with like-minded brands. I've spent the past 11 plus years in the advertising and marketing industry. Prior to starting JDS Projects in 2020, I was working at the Grammy Awards in brand partnerships. The reason why I started JDS Projects was because, I wanted to marry my experience in brand partnerships with my passion and love for just supporting, mentoring other women. So I found that the talent management space was for me. And now I get to work with some amazing, talented women out there, from chefs to wellness creators to podcasters and more. So excited to be here.
Excited to have all of you guys here with us today. And that's like a very formal introduction that I asked you guys to do when I would love to pivot and just have like a very casual conversation amongst friends. So let's like shake that out because look, like it's Mental Health Awareness Month. My hope is that we can freaking have these conversations well outside of the confines of a 30-day period or however many days are in May. My education is not impressing anybody right now. I have to do the song. Does anybody else have to do the song? 30 days, September, April, June, and November. Okay, all of it. Yeah, so that's
Never heard of that.
well, if you're like my brain who grew up in the Florida educational system, that's probably a reflection of that, maybe more than anything else. That is how I know how many days are in a month. But so within the confines of like this month, we hear like a lot of conversations about mental health, which is fantastic, phenomenal. There should be space for it. But like there are also 11 more months of the year. Arguably like the end of the year, like, right? Like the nuttiest time, the holidays is probably when we should be talking about the most, when we're all like losing our minds.
I second that so hard. I heard a podcast the other day that was like, it's the most wonderful time of the year, should be struck for it's just the most time of the year. It's just the most.
I appreciate the heck out of that. And so like here we are. And I just, first of all, I sort of like posed the question out to our community and had a lot of people want to have this conversation, which is exciting to me because I feel like it's a conversation that just needs to be had. So with all that being said, I'd love to hear sort of like what mental health even like means to you. Like there's some of these like phrases that we just sort of like casually say 1,000,001 times and I almost feel like they like lose their meaning. And I was thinking earlier today, I was like mental health. Like it's actually a really powerful thing. And if you really break that down, I think that it also can mean something very individualized depending on who you're asking. So, Jenny, what does mental health mean to you? I'm going to put you on the spot and then I'm going to ask everyone else.
I mean, for me, just like, a lot of times I think in our culture, just in society, we focus so much on physical health. I think mental health is just as important, right? Like that's how we function every day. Like without our mental health, we actually don't have physical health. But what mental health means to me is just, being in a space, at least a healthy mental space, where you're feeling good in what you're doing, you're feeling supported, so many other things, but that kind of just comes top of mind when I think of mental health. I don't know. What do you think, Ginger?
Yeah. I mean, when we look at the research, they tend to frame mental health as mental illness. And I look at mental health as being kind of the best version of yourself, taking care of yourself, prioritizing yourself. And I tend to do a lot of journaling and writing down. If I can't be the best version of myself, I can't be the best version of myself for anyone else either. So I look at mental health as being, prioritizing everything. And the brain is kind of that main part of your body that controls everything else. So if this isn't working properly, nothing else is going to feel good. So that's how I kind of look at mental health. And I really look at it as health and prioritizing my full being.
Totally. I love that. What about you, Kelsey? How do you think of it?
I agree with you, Jessy, that it is so individual. And for me, in my personal exploration, what I've actually realized is that mental health and nervous system health are extremely interconnected. So I'm currently about to finish The Body Keeps the Score, which is a very well-known book about how experiences impact us and we store emotion in our bodies and in our nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And what most people don't realize until you need to do some self-exploration is that we're walking through life kind of disconnected from our nervous system, disconnected from our body. We either are numbing or we are overproducing. We're anxious. We are people pleasers. We're perfectionists. It's the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And we're not really stopping to really sit with our bodies and to really sit with our thoughts. So to me, mental health, step one is like, can you sit with your thoughts? Can you feel a sense of presence? And then like gold star Zen level stuff, can you get to a sense of peace? That's what mental health is to me.
That's real. I feel like when I'm in a place where I am not feeling mentally healthy, I'm scared to sit in my own thoughts.
Yeah.
I can definitely understand that it could be the opposite. What are some I don't know, let's dispel some myths or stigmas or anything that comes to mind for you guys. Like when I think of Ginger, you brought up mental health sometimes equals mental illness, and the two are not a subtle difference, but it's a one word change. And, I'm seeing more and more people use vernacular that feels more appropriate to what I think we're all getting after, but labels, like mental illness, like there's something wrong with you. Like that sort of notion is just going to perpetuate anything that maybe needs support, So I don't know, what are other myths or things that we can dispel or, phrases that we sort of want to see go out the window? Like, does anything else come to mind for you guys?
Well, just, adding to that stigma around mental illness and mental health, there was some research done in Canada. If we want to talk stats, we want to dive deep into the research. And 75% of respondents said that they would refuse to disclose a mental illness to an employer or a coworker. That's a big problem. That is a big problem. And that the respondents were nearly 3 times less likely to disclose a mental illness than a physical one. My mind is blown. And I think that's how, I approach mental health is I talk about my own struggles with my team all the time. All the time, and trying to break down the stigma and the barriers. And my team knows if you need a day, you take the day, because that stigma and even knowing that number and that research, even if I can just affect change within the 7 people on my team, then I feel like I'm helping break down that stigma, and talking about it really helps. I mean, when I left the corporate world, we didn't talk about mental health. It wasn't a thing. And I had no idea what I was dealing with. Kelsey, you mentioned something about the nervous system, and actually in the process of diagnosing what I was dealing with, and I've been seeing doctors for about 12 years trying to figure out what was going on. There is a brain-gut connection, and that the
vagus nerve.
Well, the vagus nerve. If you don't know about the vagus nerve and you have gut issues, start to do some research.
You got IBS? Look into it, girls.
Oh my goodness. Yes. So this vagus nerve runs from the brain to the gut, and it affects you physically. Now, listen, if we're going to talk about what I'm dealing with, and I'm going to be completely vulnerable with you guys here, I have generalized anxiety that I treat with a small dose of Prozac because the doctors kind of were eventually like, okay, it's actually high functioning because you can't really diagnose it. It's kind of under the diagnosis of generalized anxiety. But I never let anybody else see what I'm going through. It's all internal. So it manifests physically. That is a big deal. I make myself sick from stress and anxiety. And so I really started to learn how to cope, and I'm excited to get down into talking about how we're coping and coping mechanisms. But yeah, I'm really trying to be vulnerable. And that's why, Jessy, I said, I'm joining this podcast with you because the more we talk about it, the less stigma there will be around it.
1,000%. And so, like, I don't want to put anyone else on the spot, but like depression, anxiety, ADHD, and family members and friends who experience that and so much more as well. So I appreciate, a vulnerable share. And I also appreciate the idea that talking about it almost feels as if it's a small thing, but it's actually the opposite. I don't know about you guys, but years ago before I was taking medication, I had a stigma about medication, a big stigma about medication. I was like, oh my God, I have to get to the degree that something's wrong enough that I need medication. So I think that what really got me to, I guess, the first place of being able to just like get help and like live a better life was talking about it, because not talking about it, at least for me, was out of shame. And I've had so much freedom once I got to the point that I could just feel comfortable just saying like, yeah, this is just part of me, and ignore it, push it down, like whatever to get rid of it. Like, and I don't deal with it, then I'm just going to continue to struggle. And like life is too short. Life is just too short. So I don't know. Are there any other like myths or things you want to dispel? Or Kelsey wants to go for it.
I got one. I think that one of the really insidious ones is that you're being dramatic or you're overreacting. I think, especially for women and people who are female identifying, that is a huge one. You don't want to be perceived as overreacting or dramatic. Like, what's wrong with me? Why this isn't a big deal, Kelsey. Oh God, that's like, it's such a, again, insidious, like it's under the surface, it's woven into our culture, this like drama queen, right? That's a huge myth that I absolutely would love to dispel and to weave it into what y'all are saying. Like, talking about it makes us understand that we're not alone in experiencing those things. It helps us feel less othered. And I heard something just this morning that I would love to share in a post on Instagram. Talk about how social media is busting stigmas left and right because, gosh, that makes us feel so much less alone. But I saw something that said previously asking for help might have been a sign of weakness. But what if we reframed that to asking for help is a sign that you are not willing to quit? And I loved that because it reframed it as perseverance instead of giving up. And it's true. Like, that rings so deeply true to me.
It does ring really true. And I think kind of what I heard, like a little bit of like what both of you guys said is, especially as women, I feel like some of this stuff, like it just presents maybe differently than in men. And a lot of us, I'm like generalizing to a certain extent, we'll acknowledge that, but like a lot of us are like high achieving people, right? And so it just might present in different ways. Like I very much know people that what they're experiencing inside is the exact opposite of what people perceive them to be. Also, just knowing that like people can be struggling with things even if they seem as if they are on top of the world and living their best lives, and you have no idea what somebody is experiencing inside. So just like to your point, Kelsey, like I don't know, our words really matter, like, especially when talking about something that's, like, sensitive like this. And, like, somebody could be, like, at the very beginning of their own mental health journey, if they're a little bit even more sensitive. So, like, just being really careful with, like, your words, like, don't be dramatic or a drama queen, like, anything like that could really impact somebody who's dealing with this or going through something like this. But I don't know, Jenny, is there anything that you wanted to add too?
Love this. I mean, I'm thinking about so many things right now that come to mind. I think one common word that I feel like is very common now is imposter syndrome, right? I feel like that's a form of mental health or mental health, quote unquote, issue. And going back to, men versus women, I feel like, and again, don't know the statistics behind this, but I feel like I hear more women talking about imposter syndrome versus men. Maybe men don't talk about that, or maybe they just don't use that phrase, but I feel it's more commonly used in like communities of women. I don't know what it is, but I feel like that word imposter syndrome is definitely thrown out a lot to kind of like sum up why people are feeling like they're not deserving of things, or they're not good enough and things like that. I feel like that's definitely, a common word right now. I don't know what your thoughts, ladies, if you commonly hear imposter syndrome or think of that about yourself as a business owner. Sometimes, we question, if we're good enough or if we're deserving of working with X client or not. What are your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. I have imposter syndrome all the time.
So what do you think it is? Like, if you could sort of like dig into it a little bit yourself, like, have you always had it? Like, did it get worse at a certain point in your career? Like, what do you think it's about?
I think it's a lot of things. I think social media is helpful in some ways, but it's also very toxic in many ways, right? Especially as, women entrepreneurs and business owners, we can't help ourselves but compare to what others are doing, right? Regardless of what you tell yourself, like, don't compare yourself. Don't, you're focused on your lane, like do this, do that. We're on social media. We're in influencer marketing. We're running our own businesses. We have to be on social. So I feel like a little bit of it is comparison. When it comes down to it, is comparison. And then two, I also think the talk in your head, the negative talk in your head. It's hard to be positive all the time. It's hard to just be like, I'm amazing. I'm great. Like, things are wonderful and rainbows and butterflies. I think it's our self-talk, that is creating that imposter syndrome. It could be from past trauma. It could be from past experiences that you can't let go of. I think it could be many things, but those are like the two that come to mind in terms of how imposter syndrome shows up, at least for me.
Yeah, no, 100%. What about you guys? How does it exist in your worlds?
Well, I would love to throw a log on the fire and say women and female identifying people are not usually shown examples of how to A, identify, and B, communicate desires and needs. And that's a huge part of imposter syndrome because women from day one are taught not how to want, but how to be wanted. We are taught to attract. You have to be attractive to get what you want, whether that's physically, your resume, whatever. We are taught to pull things into us because we deserve it, right? Because of the picture that we present versus traditionally male upbringings, which are taught go after it, conquer, get what you want. And both are toxic in their own ways. Like, I'm not saying one is better than the other. However, with imposter syndrome in particular, it's like, well, I don't feel like the picture that I'm presenting, but this is the picture I have to present in order to get what I want. So I think that there is that piece of it when we're speaking specifically about women.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
My imposter syndrome kind of manifests a little differently than that, Kelsey. I think mine is deep down, I know that I'm able and that I'm capable and that I can do the things. For me, when it comes to the deserving factor, I never feel deserving.
Why do you think that is?
That's how it manifests for me. And it manifests for everyone so differently, right? And I think, guys, if we sit for hours with a psychologist or a psychotherapist and we peel back those layers, we might figure it out. But here we are in a 1-hour podcast. I don't have all the answers, but I know that that's how it manifests for me, not feeling deserving.
I just read a really great book. By the way, but I highly recommend this book to everyone, especially women in business. It's called Burnout. It's by Dr. Emily Nagoski and her sister, I want to say Sarah, but I think I might be wrong. But they speak a lot about this idea of deserving something and human giver syndrome, which is like, yeah, yep, we're raising our hands.
That's why we do what we do.
Yeah. I think speaking to the giving part, like, as talent managers, like, Ginger in this influencer marketing space, not are we only trying to keep ourselves sane, we're trying to help our clients stay sane in this industry, right? Ebb and flow, like things are never consistent. Things are not always the same. All our clients are different. They have different personalities, not every day is a good day, but there are some amazing days. And I think as talent managers, it's figuring out how to balance those different emotions, but also make sure we keep the business in mind and then move forward. So I know Jessy or Ginger, you guys have something to
And
say.
like how to handle your talent suffering from their own mental health issues and how to not let it impact you. Oh God, that's hard to balance. That's hard to balance. Like back in the day before the pandemic, I used to be all about work-life integration. My goings out were, with my friends or my clients or my partners. And now with the pandemic, now that I work at home, I'm work-life balance. I shut off. And then people know to text me if they really need me. But for all intents and purposes, everything can wait until the next day, right? Let's be honest. Balancing, that's like a whole other job in and of itself, balancing how you handle your talent's mental stresses and then how to not let it impact you. I don't know, Kelsey, do you have any recos for that?
Sure do. Sure do. Because a lot of the people that I work with are creative, and I think creators are small business owners, right? They are absolutely small business owners, entrepreneurs. They're running everything as a business, right? Certainly if they're at the level that they're working with a talent manager. So here are some tips. Ask people what their triggers are. A lot of times deadlines are a big mental health trigger. So if you know that going into a client contract or a creator contract, you can pad the deadline a bit. Yep. You can say it's earlier than it is. I mean, of course, like everything within legal, we want to keep everything like legal. We don't want to lie. But if there is some padding around a deadline and a creator can understand that they're being given some grace, then that will make them want to work even harder to meet that deadline for you. Mm-hmm. Another trigger is editing someone's creative work. And a great way to preemptively talk about that is to say, like, we may need to edit the copy, but we're not going to force you to put anything up that you don't believe in. Level setting that at the very beginning. Let them know to expect edits rather than feeling quote unquote blindsided by edits. That's a big one. So those are two really big triggers, deadlines and edits, that you can address at the very beginning of any creator contract. That's really going to help them feel taken care of as they complete their work.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Just popping in to remind you to check out Women in Influencer Marketing, the membership community. So if you're enjoying this podcast, this is just a sliver of all that we are. So we have a mentorship program. We have casting opportunities. We have 24/7 community forums. We have events in real life, virtual, masterclasses, and so much more. Those women who join our membership have had amazing things to say. We've been around since 2017. And if you're not a part of it, you are absolutely missing out. So I encourage you to check out our website, iamwim.com, and learn all about us. iamwim.com. If you go to the events page also, you'll see that we have a regular event, Get the Most Out of Your Membership. It's for new members, but it's also for those of you who might be curious, like, what is WIM? Do I have a place there? How do I fit in? Come join. I'm there live. So are lots of other people. And it's a cool opportunity for me to teach you all about what we have to offer. Also, giving you this freebie. we actually give away a month free when you attend. So if you're interested in not only learning about WIM, but also experiencing a whole month free, definitely check it out. You can go to our website again. It's iamwim.com. That's IAMWIIM.com. Sign up for our next event. And I look forward to seeing you hopefully around the WIM community. That is so interesting. I feel like the deadline thing, like, I almost feel like I know that with like other people in my life, but I never really associated that or like drew the correlation between like creator deadlines. And then what was the other one you said? The other one was about edits.
Knowing ahead of time that your work is probably going to be edited. Yes.
And that is so wild. I almost feel like I'm triggered by that. It's a delicate moment, you know? And I feel like maybe in influencer marketing in particular, like a lot of us are trying to do this quickly and at scale. And we sort of just like brush past what could be a really delicate moment for someone. Like you put hours or days or even weeks sometimes in videos into like of energy into this one piece of content to then have it literally like just handed to you with like a slew of edits and like no context, no humanity to it. Like I appreciate you bringing it up because I'm having like a little bit more of an appreciation. Almost of course it would be triggering to someone and like why wouldn't I think of that? But again, like I can guess at the why. I just think people are trying to like move too quickly. And then imagine being on the reverse side of it, like receiving that. Like, what do you do with that? Like, you don't want to be the one to ruffle feathers or, you know, say like, ooh, like, do you advocate for yourself? Like, do you say like, I would actually rather not do this edit or that edit? Even bringing up the conversation and pushing back can trigger something else to other people. So I guess like I'd ask you guys, like influencer marketers, no matter where you sit, experience that editing process, which usually feels like one of the more sticky, tricky situations to navigate. Is there anything that you guys have seen that's worked well to get through that?
If I may, this goes back to how not to let that feedback affect you personally, but we tend to shield our clients from a lot of it. I know, like Jenny's like, yeah, girl, yeah, girl. We always tell our clients when we sign them, we only want you to be the yes person. We will be your no person. We are your shield. We become that first line of defense for everything. So trying not to let that impact you personally is a big thing, but also protecting my clients and my talent because, you know, the bigger they get, the more people hide behind anonymity, the more negativity you get online. Negativity is also a huge one too, right? A huge source of mental health stress in this influencer world. So we go Jerry Maguire on our clients. When the bigger they get, the more Jerry Maguire we are and the more hands-on we are. We will actually have, you know, just the bigger your client gets, the bigger your team gets, the more people you can have working on that one client, right? So it's not going to help for everyone, but this is a tip that we do. We have actually an outside text chain, so to speak, when issues happen for certain clients that the client is not involved in so that we can actually just go and fix it so that it's not a pain point for that client, because it is so hard to be that vulnerable, and which is one of the reasons why I'm not an influencer and could never put out myself out like that. But like they have to be so freaking vulnerable. Like if there's anything I can do to take that stress away from them, I will. Because you know what? I come with a PR background and I've done reframing the way we talk about things and the way we position things and wording and that sort of thing. And just basically like critical, you know, PR management and response. So we tend to be that middle person for that negativity response. And we definitely shield our clients from a lot of it.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here and like throw out a very different, just the question, is that serving everybody? I used to do it too, by the way. And I know most people do, but just simply to play devil's advocate, like, do we think that that is actually the most beneficial thing to do for your mental health? Because then that puts a lot on you. And then from shielding creators from some things that you think that they should be shielded from. What do you guys think? The answer could be yes, by the way, of course.
I think that there's a balance to it. I think like Ginger mentioned, you said it, shielding. I do feel like the protector of my clients. I feel like, I am their advocate. So this is why I am put in this position to protect them. But to your point, Jessy, is that healthy? Like, because I'm sure what you're getting to is like, is it good sometimes for them to see that direct feedback? Right? So they can learn, so they can grow. I think, again, everything with balance. I think depending on the messaging from the client, whether it be negative or too direct, I do share that feedback, but in my way. Because, at the end of the day, you have to know your clients, either from the brand side or from the talent side. You have to know who your talent is and what triggers them, right? Like Kelsey mentioned, what triggers your clients. And you have to be mindful of that before you share any type of feedback with them. So I know that's like an answer that's kind of like not a direct answer, but that's how I've managed my relationships, is like, I'm happy to give them direct feedback, especially if they need to hear it. Like, I'm not afraid to give my talent direct feedback, but it's how you position it to them and on the other side too, right? Because sometimes the creator might say like, well, I don't want to do it, right? Or this is not what I believe in. And how do you tastefully share that with the brand too, right? But also be direct. So it's sort of a game. It's a balancing game, but I think that's the way it has happened, at least for me. It's finding that fine line between being direct, being honest, being truthful, but also making sure like we all learn from all sides of things.
Totally. This is business. Like, we're talking about mental health in the framework of business. So like, maybe in our personal lives, we have the luxury to be very direct because like there's not money on the line or people's mouths to feed on the line, right? And so we have the luxury to maybe do things differently. But yeah, I respect the hell out of what you're saying, because you're like, well, you know, this isn't even my livelihood. I'm acting on behalf of my client. So like, there's so many variables at play and so many things that you have to take into consideration. I think that middle person, whether you're a manager between a agency or brand and a creator, or you're an agency, which is also a middle person in between the brand and the manager and the creator, like, it's a really delicate place to sit. And I almost wonder if like mental health concerns exist more in those areas than others, because you're just trying to please so many more people. There's so much more on the line. And like, I feel like I know that it could take a toll. I sold my agency and I'm not directly managing talent anymore, but I coach managers. And so like, I hear all the time from different people's businesses how like it can feel manic, and it can feel as if like there is going to be some ball or multiple balls that drop by the end of every single day. It's almost like you want it to be perfect. You want it to be as close to perfect as humanly possible, right? But like, it almost can't be. It's never going to be. And so like, I don't know if any of you guys experience that, just like what it's like to live in the messiness, like, and how that even affects your mental health. Like, what is that like for anyone?
I think that manic is the perfect word for it. And I think learning to process that feeling through my body was an incredibly useful tool for me. Because bottom line, like, we can't change everything about a situation, right? We can't manipulate the situation to be perfect, because that's codependence. And we might try for years, but it's never going to happen. But what we can do is look for ways to process that manic feeling. Some of the most successful ones: join a community like WIM, have other people who understand what you're going through, a safe space where you can just vent without having judgment or advice. It is so valuable. They literally see changes in the physical brain and in neurobiology, having a safe space to vent without judgment or advice. So find your community, find your people, and then can you physically process a difficult day after the day has happened? This literally tells your body, this is in the Burnout book, by the way, by Emily Nagoski. If you experience fight or flight, that flooded feeling of adrenaline, if you do not then move your body after, your body stays in that fight or flight state until you physically process it. And what it does is if you don't, it makes you want to overeat. It makes you want to zone out. It makes you not want to get up in the morning. It makes your sleep terrible. So working out after work, even though I'm sure none of us love going to the gym, I hate it. I don't know about anybody else. I hate the gym, but even just like a walk, move it through your body in order to come down after.
So she doesn't say anything about a glass of wine, eh? Come on.
That's your book that you're going to write. That's the book I want to read.
No, I agree though with the walking, or getting on the Peloton. I actually also implemented a breathing technique that I learned through meditation, which is the breathing in for 8 seconds, holding for 8 seconds, breathing out for 8 seconds, and holding for 8 seconds. That is a surefire way if you deal with anxiety and your mind goes in spirals and all over the place.
That's called box breathing, by the way, if anybody wants
Box breathing. Thank you. Yes, that's it. Yes. It's amazing. It is an amazing tool. I couldn't think of the name.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I
Kelsey.
mean, nerd alert over here.
And like, what else helps you guys? Because I also am so cognizant. Like, some people have come on even this podcast, and I'm like, what helps you with balance? And they're like, oh, meditating every day. And I'm like, I mean, okay, that's like phenomenal for you. I am just not a meditator at all. I've tried. I feel like I'm so in my head. This is not my thing. What actually really, truly, no bullshit, like what really helps you guys when you're in a moment that you want to get out of? Whoever wants to start.
Make a playlist of a time period that you really have good memories for. Play the playlist, sing aloud. This stimulates the vagus nerve. So for me, I've got like musical theater songs that I loved in high school that I would like belt with my gay best friend in the bathroom because it had great acoustics. Nothing is better than singing 525,600 minutes.
Good song.
It immediately,
I'm just playing that in my head now when you said that.
right? Resets my nervous system immediately. Same goes for Disney songs. Same goes for like Y2K pop music. Like singing or moving or having music that is from a happy time in your life stimulates your brain and your body. And it's that amazing. It's like a vagus nerve hack.
I love about this Vegas nerve hack. This is, or just the term, just, it sounds so cool. I think for me, similar to Kelsey, it's music. I love music. Growing up, music brings me joy. So taking a moment to think about like, what brings me joy? What do I like and enjoy doing? I love music. I love food. I'm a foodie. So going out, if I had a tough day, maybe I'm like, let's go to a dinner or to somewhere that we really like. I started working out again, after I have a toddler, he's 3 years old, but I hadn't worked out in so long, right? And I had just started my business and I truly wasn't taking care of myself. And I finally got the urge to work out again. And I joined Orange Theory, not a plug to Orange Theory, but love Orange Theory. Like I need someone to tell me what to do because I'm so used to telling people what to do. I'm like, somebody tell me what to do, right? So taking time to at least 2 times a week to just go to Orange Theory. And then like Ginger mentioned, taking a walk throughout the day. Like even if it's like a 20, 30-minute walk to step away from your desk and away from all that you're doing, it has been really helpful for me.
I love that so much.
Wine. No. A really good glass of red wine. No, I'm kidding. All jokes aside, I do love a glass of red wine, but not all the time. But okay, I have something to throw your way. Both of you, physical activity, music. What if you're someone whose anxiety gets you so worked up and so exhausted and you can't physically do anything? How do you deal with it? What's a good way? I like the box breathing, the walking, but sometimes if I'm so busy, I can't get out and walk, or I can't hop on the Peloton or I can't do something. And I know this is time, but it's not physical activity. It's hopping in my car and just going for a drive. I don't know what it is. It's kind of like when you to put a baby to sleep, when you have to take them out for a drive and they go to sleep. Same thing, just doing something physically different, especially when we're working in our homes now, just getting out and going for a drive, but that's not making me tired or having to do something or think about it.
I think it's the opposite. I actually relate to you, Ginger, on that 100%. Like prior years, when I was really working for someone else, you're talking about like the idea of like manic. Like I felt like I was going and experiencing that to the 10th degree, where I would work myself to the bone so much so that I would just completely burn out. But it wasn't like a one-time thing. It was like a cyclical, pretty regular thing. So I agree. Like I would get to the point that I would like drop. And so yeah, I haven't really thought about this, but I do feel like what has worked for me to help that. So I very religiously use like a calendar booking system for calls, meetings of any sort. And I very intentionally set my hours so that people cannot book me Mondays or Fridays, and most days after like 4:30, 5 o'clock at the very latest. And it sort of gives me guardrails. I need guardrails because otherwise I will do exactly what you're describing. And so it's interesting, right? Like sometimes it's like, you know, I don't know that there's like a magic bullet for some of this stuff, right? I almost feel as if the older that I get, at least, I learn things from people that I talk about, and I just implement safety guardrails for myself to be able to like deal with how I am naturally, you know? So I don't know if that helps, but I can totally relate to what you're describing, just being exhausted and also the driving thing. I'll say, like, I sometimes feel like a school bus because I pick my stepdaughter up and like drive her more than anybody else. And we have multiple parents. I'm a stepmom, right? But as much as sometimes I'm like, "Ugh, what am I, just a school bus?" It takes me away from my desk and it makes me drive for a full like 60 minutes, picking her up, driving her somewhere else. And I actually enjoy it. It's the sunlight. It's like being able to like sort of zone out. Like it's not even a lot of turns. It's like a one, straight shot, but stepping away and doing some of those things that you described, I feel you on that. Like I experienced similar things.
Yeah, and I think Jessy, similar to you too, I was in a corporate environment, and I think at the beginning of this talk we talked about language and use of words, and I loved my job. I had the best job, and when I left, everybody's like, "What? Why would you leave that?" I had to give myself the flexibility and freedom to figure out what I was dealing with and to give myself the space to deal with it. Because I would go into a corporate office, this is before treatment, when I didn't know what I was dealing with, when I was seeing an allergist because they thought I had an allergy, and they thought I was allergic to stress. Like that's what I was told. That's what the allergist told me.
We're all allergic to stress.
Great line. I'm allergic to stress.
I know, right? I know. But going into a corporate office space where, God forbid, you're not that energetic 24/7 person for one day and your boss says, "Oh, you're not happy today." How do you live in a space like that? And that is why it's so important for me to A, shield my clients, and B, talk about this openly. I talk about it with my talent and I talk about it with my team. And that, I think, has been the single biggest factor in allowing my team their own flexibility and freedom to thrive in this environment.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the heck out of that. Very much so. And so, like, if you guys could share, like, I don't know, final thoughts. I wish we could chat about this for, well, we will have you guys back on. I feel like these are honestly like really important freaking conversations. And we're, just scratching the surface here. But like, if you guys could share like just what's helped you. I'll start and I'll make it quick. Therapy has literally changed my life, and coupled with removing the stigma of medication, because medication absolutely probably was the first thing to change my life. So what about you guys?
I think for me is, again, am continuing to practice is truly setting boundaries, right? Like I know that sounds, everyone says set boundaries, but how do you put that in practice? For me, I've really made an intentional effort on setting boundaries, right? Doing what makes me happy, not saying yes to everything, right? I think as givers and helpers, we want to help everyone around us. But I think when we do that, we drain our own energy. So I've been making an intentional effort on setting clear boundaries and being impeccable with my word, right? Like if I truly don't want to do something, or even I tell this to my clients, I'm like, hey, if you really don't want to do this, don't do it. Because the last thing I want you to do is to do it and then regret it. So truly thinking about before you make that decision, does this make me happy? And do I truly want to do it? You'll know if it's a yes or a no. So that's been really helpful for me. It's just setting clear boundaries and being impeccable with my word.
Yeah. I have three things that I kind of do for myself. One, medication, big deal. I'm not on a high dose of fluoxetine, which is Prozac. I am on a small dose, but it helps connect the dots and it helps me get through and over the hurdles that would have otherwise taken me 5 days. I can't stress that enough. Please don't think it's a bad thing. It has helped me so much. And I tell everyone who's struggling to maybe fluoxetine is not the right one for you, but there are so many SSRI inhibitors and that sort of thing that, that could be a good fit for you. So explore that. It's not a bad thing and there should not be a stigma around it. Number 2, journaling. I do a 5-minute gratitude journal every day, and I can't believe how much more positive it makes me think throughout the day and be grateful and thankful for the little things that I never think about that make me happy. There's also a journal called the Human Being Journal, which is a 1-year journal, and it's based on The Power of Now, which is Eckhart Tolle's book. And it guides you through 1 year of goal setting and, how you're feeling in different aspects of your life every month. So I know I said 2 and there was a third one and now I forget it, but if I think about it, I'll come back to it. Kelsey, your turn.
You bet. So I'll start with something called habit stacking. So one of the things that really held me back for a long time was I would be like, today's the day that I get mentally healthy and I'm going to do 20 things that I read about on Instagram and I'm going to be this perfect yoga person. It was just ridiculous. And then I would do it for about 3 days and then I would start shaming myself for not wanting to do it or I didn't follow through. And the shame spiral would happen and I would fall off the wagon and then I would just do nothing, right? So I learned about this thing called habit stacking from a therapist. Echoing therapy, absolutely. Find a therapist that's right for you. Explore different types of therapy. Not all therapy is like laying on a couch and talking to somebody holding a notepad. I personally do somatic therapy, which is nervous system based. It has changed my life. Neither here nor there, though, habit stacking. So starting and being compassionate with yourself and being like, I am only going to adopt one new habit. And however long that takes me, it's how long that takes me. And habit stacking is taking a habit you already have and putting a habit you want to adopt on top of that habit. So for me, I have coffee every morning. That is a habit I am never going to get rid of. So help me God, they can pry it from my cold dead hands. I love my coffee. That habit is going nowhere. So I started, before I got my coffee, opening the Calm app. And there was a daily, it's called the Daily Wisdom or something. It's 10-minute long. You just listen to it. And even if I don't focus, whatever, all that I had to do was just open the app. Then I added another thing, bring a journal with me, like a month and a half later. And lo and behold, after a year, now I've got these like beginning of the day and end of the day, sort of tallies of habits, these new habits that are super healthy. And like Jessy said, they act like guardrails. They keep me, it's like, like anything else, you just have to practice it and get it into your body, get it into your system for long enough. And then it'll come way more naturally. And be nice to yourself. Please be nice to yourself in the process. And then the second thing, which this is more of like a hack, smell and temperature are immediate bridges into like interrupting an anxiety cycle or a thought cycle. So if you drink an ice cold glass of water, that will immediately reset your nervous system. If you drink some hot tea, reset your nervous system. If you light a candle, reset your nervous system. Essential oil, same thing. Keep some in your desk. Smell and temperature are great. Like immediate, like 911, I need something to reset my nervous system.
That's so good.
I remembered my third. Can I say, because I think it's a really good one and it's really related to business and to the power of believing in yourself. And it is, to Jenny's point about words, the ability to say no. My business coach always tells me the best position you can be in is one where you say no. And that is one of my favorite words.
It's so good. I love that framing of it though, like the best position you can be. It's a slightly different take on it. That's powerful. It's really good. I've said before, like, there's just a lot of power in no. Yours is better.
Yeah. And we're thinking this is a business podcast. We're thinking business. We're thinking about how we relate everything to business and operating our business. And just the best position you can be in is one where you say no in business. It works all the time. And trust me, in a negotiation, if you say no and they really want you, they're going to come back with more money every single time.
I actually have one more little hack too. You made me think of this, and I love this. Just like Jessy said, give yourself guardrails, but give yourself like an hour in the middle of the day where you actually turn notifications off so that if people are trying to text you, they see that you have notifications turned off, and it actually relieves that pressure on your brain of like, people are expecting me to get back to them. Even if it's just for 1 hour for lunch in the middle of the day.
So good. And that's a big one too. And, look, there's a lot to unpack here. So there's only so much that we could discuss. And honestly, I feel like we talked about quite a lot, which is awesome. But, that leads me into like just the anxiety aspect of it. And, then there's like so many different aspects. So I guess like first and foremost, I really appreciate you guys just having a very honest conversation about this. And I really feel strongly, and at least I hope that one person, probably more, will be listening to this and just like, feel as if they're not alone, feel as hopefully maybe they found a hack that can help them, or at least it could just start a conversation to lead them to something that will help them improve their life. Like life is just too short to go through this stuff, like white knuckling our way through it, or, whatever sort of shuts us down, whether it's a stigma or pressure or even just the anxiety itself. Like life is just too short and there's so many resources out there. They are hard to find sometimes. So I heard Kelsey say like, it's not just finding a therapist. You got to find the right therapist to like really help you. I've been through so many bad ones and I found my one and I will never let her go. At one point she was like kind of shaving clients away and I was like, I'll pay double. I don't care what it is. Like you're not leaving me because it's hard. It's fine.
You know what? She had the power to say no.
Yeah, she did.
She did. And it worked because I could never let her go. I think all of these things are relevant. I heard you guys say a lot about words, that words matter, the idea that, saying one thing out loud, oh my God, how many times does that one thing loop in your head? Oh my God. I mean, that's just a whole other conversation. So all of these things I appreciate you guys talking about today. I will link social platforms of all of our guests today in the show notes because if you would like to connect with them, I think they would love to connect with you guys. So for all of you guys tuning in today, thank you so, so much for indulging us in this very important conversation. And we will see you guys next week.
If you enjoyed this episode, we gotta have you back. Check out our website for more ways to get involved, including all the information you need about joining our collective. You can check out all the information at iamwim.com. Leave us a review, a rating, but the most important thing that we could ask you to do is to share this podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Tune in next week.
Tune in next week.